Welcome back everybody, DestinysJesus here. In this video I'm playing the first trios tournament and basically going over what I learned, what mistakes that we actually went ahead and did, and that we can fix going forward. I'm also playing this with FaZe Martoz. You guys should know who he is. There's loads of really good videos on YouTube. I'm basically going back and looking over these games and also giving some insight into what we need to fix going forward into other trio events and some things that you guys can learn from. Make sure to leave a like if you did, and also subscribe if you're new. Okay, so now getting into actually what I learned from the Cash Cup. So in game one, we were basically in a pretty stacked game, like 44 left, which is actually really stacked for the first game, and we needed a refresh. Best way to look for a refresh in these kind of stacked games is to look upwards by boxing up on low ground. You see you get an easy kill right there, and that basically just means that we're going to be one of us at least cap mats going into moving zones. One big thing I'd recommend is always making sure you box in brick or metal at this point. Ideally metal, because it makes it way harder to see through, and also means you can have a lot of room to work around. Okay, so right here you can see on first moving, my goal is basically should be the Tarpa while Martoz and Wake go for a load of kills. So you can see I'm going to edit up and actually just try to establish a layer. It's kind of a scuff layer several times because there's cones in front of you, so you'd always want to try to level up as soon as you see one of those bad layers. Right there you see we get again another really easy harpoon refresh, just making sure ideally your Tarpa runs harpoon or your support player just so they can easily edit other players out and you can basically just get an easy drop down just like that.
Can somebody take over top maybe while I heal? Yeah. Take over top on this. See where I'm going, yeah? Just go. Yeah.
Okay, that's something I learned from watching Centered and Commandment. Basically, Centered will start their team on a really good TARP play like I did there, and then he'll let Commandment take over and finish the rest of the TARP and use his majority of that. It's really good for just swapping up, and also if you need one of your players to heal, that's something I'd recommend doing. Just get your TARPers to actually figure out what layer you want to stick on, and then the other players take over while they heal.
Not walls, come past. I'm going up there.
Again, you can see here I go up a layer. Basically, every single time it feels a little bit scuffed and a little bit claustrophobic. Then we go up a layer, and you can see we get a really good spot here. We could have potentially looked for height if all three of us committed at the same time, but we kind of called this late and didn't really have a plan for actually going for height.
Let's just stop. On the right, there's a team. Cracked one, crack the yellow, the chicken skin.
Okay, right here, this is a really good example, just basically, as soon as you get a tag on somebody in-game, make sure you come to your teammate exactly which skin, because it can easily result in a kill. We make probably the biggest mistake of the in-game in just a second here.
Dropping.
Okay, right here you can see I actually dropped down on the chicken skin. The one thing that I blocked off was towards zone, which is obviously a good play, but I should have blocked off all these angles behind. But thinking of my mats, I really didn't want to waste these extra mats, but this actually ended up getting me killed in a second here. You can see I dropped down, those players break through the ramp, and then all of this trio basically force their way through at the same time, and that gets me killed and that gets my teammates at really low HP. Biggest takeaway there is just whenever you get one of those kills and you're actually dropping down the loop, is make sure you cover all the angles of all your available mats, because you know you're at least going to get 150 from the guy that you kill. Okay, so right there we get top 2 first game. Not really the best, obviously you'd like to win your first game, but in these cash cuts when you've got a lot of pro players in our lane, like we did with like a load of top teams like AJ and a lot of other top tier EU teams as well, like Thomas HD, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to actually win the first game, so getting second place is fine. So right here you can see what our spawn strategy is. Martoz's landing over at that yellow house, I'm landing up on this little junkyard place and getting all the mechanical parts, and then my teammates landing up on the crane. The one downside of these kind of split drops on spawn, especially in cash cups, is players can do kind of random things of landing. Teams can stack certain spots like the junkyard, teams can stack the crane. It can get a little bit scuffed, so you do have to be adaptable. One thing we didn't adapt to this game is how many people were actually going to push us off spawn. Basically, it got be keyed by a bunch of different teams, then ended up dying as we were trying to drive away from this team that was chasing us. Alright, I'll let you guys watch this clip of Martoz clutching up our spawn in this kind of 3v2 situation.
Yeah, box.
Nice. On me. You can first that.
I need to reload. They're taking top. They're bad ping as well, I just held it.
Yeah,
I'm extending a bit more out.
I have 2 bullets literally.
Okay, here, take some. All I need is for them to... they're a gas scanner, watch out. Wait, I'm out.
Ready?
I might be able to sneak top. That?
Oh my god.
I'm on the height. Probably gonna kill him.
This kid's getting worse. I'm playing with the best player or something, man.
So in game 2 we actually get contested off spawn, and there's 3 of them landing on this junkyard place. I do a pretty good job of actually making sure I've got the best drop, and then I go ahead and land on this revolver. And the one downside of again doing these split drops is the fact your teammates are always going to be so far away, so it's quite easy for you to get contested and triple stacked. And then also here in a second you can see, because of how far Martoz is, we basically should have waited for him off spawn.
Are you good?
I am.
You dead?
trailers landed on me.
Oh.
Got 150 white, and 98 white, so.
Can you help him, Wake?
Another one shot.
Try, you can see we definitely should have waited for Martoz to come over. You can easily just drive over in our car and then make a play where you can basically just help us and easily push it all together. We don't really have a reboot round, so we can't afford to one of us go down. But you can see actually make a really big mistake here. Commit to fighting this one on low ground since I whited him.
White twice in this ground like that.
At this point, I get dropped on by the other guy, and then my teammates are too far. Martoz was still coming in, so I definitely should have waited before going for that play, and then kind of forced sending in.
No time wires on that.
Back then, one shot that.
Nice, good stuff.
What? White, knock one.
Wait.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, another kid here.
Oh, you're
Nice.
the best. What the
So in game 3 towards the end game, we're basically just late car rotating. Ideally, we should have been a lot earlier in our rotate, but actually get out here towards center, which is a pretty decent spot. The one downside of us actually getting in the spot, you can see we're in a really good spot in the metal base, is the fact that we leave that one wood wall over there, and that one wood wall, especially in these high elo lobbies, doesn't actually get capitalized on immediately. Martoz get cracked, Wake gets hit for a lot of damage, and this team just constantly stinks us, which gives them way too much stink damage, which kind of opens an invitation for them to actually go ahead and W key over towards us. One thing we should have done was just all expand backwards and make a lot more room, and definitely make sure that we don't avoid like any situations where these guys just trade in, actually go for shots.
Come back right. Back here, come back here.
150 on one.
No, I'm dead.
Track there you can see Wake goes down and Martoz goes down at the same time, just because these guys were just spraying in constantly, and also because we're towards Twente and fighting, all the other teams in the circle can actually go ahead and look over us, and that gets us killed. So I'll let this full endgame play out on a second here, but you can see Martoz actually makes a really good call to actually go for height. And some of these kind of calls, you basically pre-call things. You basically make a plan out in case something happens in Fortnite. Basically, most of the time towards the end game, like, if this happens, okay, we're going to instantly do this, which is Martoz's call here. In fact, we're going to ramp up on this left-hand side and play for zone. So you can see we all do it at the same time. We actually make sure we secure height properly on this old build, and we actually get high ground from this.
They have so more than us, I think.
Wait, do they know we have more zone, right? It's going our side. It's going like this way, yeah.
Just go up a little bit. Just elevate a little bit. They can't really sweat us.
Okay, so right here you can see this other team is still looking for high ground, and this is probably the biggest mistake we made. Martoz is tarping, and me and Wake actually need to be making sure we're pressuring and spraying this team enough. I should be spraying this entire time rather than looking for a beam, but instead I'm going to be cautious. My ammo, I've only got 60 bullets, so I need to make sure that we're making sure that we get all of this damage and pressure the other team. As you can guys see, we're actually 1100 on Storm Surge here without getting a single kill. If you want to actually leak what kind of colorblind and the video settings I'm using, just make sure this video gets like 1k likes. I'll basically do a video explaining all the settings, since it is really good for Storm Surge, actual colorblind, and the video I'm using. But right here you can see, because of the fact that we're not holding height properly, we actually lose high ground in a really bad way there. The team ramps up, but we are able to reconnect, and from here I'll just let it play out, us having a really good endgame and getting a bunch of kills.
I have 7.
Yeah, big hearts. I split.
We're together, fine. I just took your lines.
Goes left.
I'll just
Yeah, we have any way.
We gotta drop, we
Can
gotta
we?
drop.
Yeah, we need to get low.
Can we drop down like... Oh no, stay on this way for a sec.
Okay.
Here?
I'm out, Matt. Can somebody start?
Hide on this kid.
I'm
60
dropping
white,
him,
6
I'm
dead.
Drop it on that. Got it. I'm out, Matt. Stay on Matt.
Find us.
I only have woods. We need to get up here. I don't have mats anymore. You guys need to leave.
I'm healing him back still. I'm watching.
Okay. Just overbuild, Wake.
This is so laggy.
Oh wait, I can't block my back.
Yeah,
I legit have 0 mats.
yeah, that's happening now.
Can you look back? I'm 1 HP and I got no mats to go up.
He's full of...
I'm in your
Oh, below
box.
us.
0 mats in your box.
I have 100 only.
We're together. Just stay chill.
I come.
I'm with you, Martoz. I'm in your box.
I
Healing.
better get a killer. 40 on this. Tones. Cracked. Dead.
Nice, chill.
Wait, fine.
Oh, I'm getting sprayed. I only have Cypher mats. He's going back. No, bro. Edit.
Crack,
Nice.
punish me. He's not
He's gonna die. Let him die to them.
He's not dead, he's in. Dead. I'm dropping it on me. Get my name. I got
We need
medkit.
to
I'm
get in
telling you,
there.
I've got so many mats on me.
I don't know where you are.
Low ground, ultimate low. There's another team down here with me. Okay, I'm going mid for a sec.
Oh,
Get out of here, get out of here. Go down, go down.
Can you guys see me? I'm on left side of zone. You see me?
Yeah, we're trying.
Careful, there's a metal team. There's a team of metal next to you. I'm gonna get to you guys, right?
Alright, I'm super weak.
It's a solo. It's a solo. It's a solo. I'm bringing you heals, bro. I got my cap. Okay, medkit.
I'm popping a med.
I have medkit. Wait, there should be like an RPG and cabbages out here somewhere.
Yeah, there probably is some extra stuff.
Can you edit this? No, it's fine.
One low down solo. I'm holding you. I've got no builds, man. I've got 5 builds.
Oh no! Edit, let him.
It's his. I'll tank. You go. Only Cypher. Only Cypher.
I have 2 builds.
I think there's one below us still.
There's a kid behind us.
Right here, editing down. I'm inside.
Dead.
Nice.
Chill.
I'm below you, Desi. I have no meds. I have no meds.
Top me.
Oh, one behind, in zone. He died.
2v or 3v1.
Gonna die to zone.
Second channel.
Right there, another second place, not too shabby. Probably the biggest takeaway is we could have won that game really easily if we just played our height holds properly. It's really important to make sure you value and understand your team roles when you're playing height to make sure you easily win the game. So in game 5, we basically had a perfect game. We were really stacked in terms of loot. We got dead side really early. I make sure we were in a really good spot. We actually had height on 50-50 here. You can see the one thing I think we messed up on is the fact that we're way too active actually looking for refreshes rather than just making sure we hold height. We should be way more spread out of a base, way wider, making sure we're way higher up as well, just to avoid other teams contesting upwards, especially like chili ramping is becoming a really popular strategy at the moment.
No delay switch from your phone.
I hit. Go down.
Right there you can see the team actually went ahead and did the exact strategy where they ramp up at the exact same time, use an RPG which is really common, and then we're in kind of a spot we have to give up height, and it really scuffs us. The one thing, because we invested in so much in actually getting that high ground position, and we knew that we were in a really good spot to win the game if we had height, is we got way too greedy for actually playing for height and trying to chop out, as you can see in a second here. In a situation like this, like, it's always important to make sure you realize, okay, we can still have a good game from mid ground or low ground, we can still get a lot of kills, rather than trying to go for one of these kind of risky height plays.
Is it? I don't think we can.
Wait, on me here.
No way we can.
On me. That's on me, we can. Come down one.
Yeah. There.
Are they connected to
Break.
I'm gonna go.
Are they connected?
I'm dead.
Yeah, they're gonna
I'm
RP.
dead.
What?
What are we playing?
So right there you can see the fact we played that entire game out and didn't get barely any points. Really just make sure you consider, is this play worth the risk? Obviously it could lead to a win pretty simply, but there is obviously some downsides to actually going for those plays and you miss out on a lot of points if it goes wrong. So right here you can see we're actually just rotating mid game. We've done all of our early game, we're max mats in a really good spot in terms of loot and guns, and we actually get pushed by another team.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna stay more behind you guys. I might be able to get like a different angle.
The one thing I'd recommend whenever you get W key like this is always to make sure a lot of extra space and make sure that you give the other team an option and kind of the choice to actually disengage. Don't just straight up build fight where they're forced into fighting. Sure, look for some angles and make them kind of consider it. If you're playing defensively like this, give them the option to just dip out, or you can go ahead and alternatively actually just straight up fight them when they decide to push you, like we did here. These guys ended up getting kind of impatient. We were looking for some lurk plays, and they actually all decided to commit into the box, kind of segmented. If they just played together all at the same time with primals, it probably would have worked. They just kind of did it slightly split, which is why we got these kills here.
In the box. In the box. 199. 90. 113.
He's gonna send.
Okay, so we kind of just played patiently and waited for the solos to come over and we got pushed by another full team. Again here, the important thing is to give this team the option to disengage. We got some crack tags in and forced them to actually rethink the fight and make sure that they realised that we were good players and we weren't really playing too passively. So we get that damage in and they ended up actually disengaging, as I said earlier. Most of the time players aren't always just going to full send W key towards you, especially if you've got bad zones, if you give them that option of disengaging. You can see they just disengage and build away, and we have to go into retail and actually reboot later on. So after we had a couple decent games, we actually ended up in a situation where my game crashed. I did the switch user trick, if you guys don't know, just do Control Alt Delete, And then from there, click switch user, sign to your PC again, and sometimes your Fortnite will uncrash. It's about 50% successful, but it can save you from a really important tourney game, or if you need like a last game to qualify for something. However, after we had that one game crash, I actually had a really big issue where my mic wasn't working like at all on Discord. As you can see, we're kind of just communicating through markers, and I was trying to fix my mic for a long time, it ended up not working at all. And also because of the fact that we weren't doing too well from earlier, with these voice connectivity issues, Martoz kind of went back to his old arena for self, and he came to this realization.
Yeah, let's double key that. We don't need Destiny's comms.
What?
So after my mic went ahead and broke, I actually tried to fix it, and while I was fixing it, I broke my entire PC's audio. I fixed it now, but basically in-game I had no audio at all, and I couldn't hear my teammates or the game at all. I was just playing with no audio. From here we kind of just played out a scuff game where we basically just running around W King. This was actually a really dead lobby. If you wait for the last minutes of a cash cup, normally you can get a dead lobby like this, and then play out the last one as well, with some free placement points, and then play out the stack game. We ended up dying off spawn in the stack game, because I couldn't come what was happening. We got landed on by another team. But basically that's how our cash got in it. We finished with 99 points. It was really fun playing with Martoz. Make sure to leave a like if you guys enjoyed this video. If it hits 1k likes, I should do a video on all the secret colorblind and the video settings as well as all the keys to input settings, which I'm sure you guys are interested in. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like and also subscribe if you did. We're really close to 100k now, which is kind of a big milestone for me for a while.